It's Canon Week and welcome to Photography Out Loud. You love my intros, don't you?
You didn't do one last week, so
I'm sure I did something.
Did you?
Yeah. Anyway,
it obviously wasn't laughter-inducing.
I'm Paul. This is Joel. Do we actually need to introduce ourselves anymore? Probably.
Possibly.
Yeah.
But just say that we're both Paul.
Oh, no, we're going to have to get rid of that as well.
I'll do that now.
There we go. Come on,
I definitely don't look like a Paul. You definitely don't look like a Joel.
Well, it was under me, so, you know, that is kind of... Anyway.
Paul and Joel, and make sure it's the right way around.
Yes, indeed. How's your week been, Joel?
Yeah, it started interestingly, but got better, I think.
Yeah. I was allowed out of the house, so I'm happy.
That's true. End of quarantine.
Yeah. And, just...
Did you go on a day out?
Well, yeah, I came back just back to work and then just hit the ground running, sort of photographing this, photographing that. So
yeah, you've done a lot of photographing this week.
I really
He's
am.
Broken.
Yeah. So.
He's out of practice. We're gonna have to get him a gym membership and a chiropractor subscription or something.
I do feel the pain at the moment. But
he's gonna wake up tomorrow and not be able to move.
Yeah. But I'm off tomorrow, so
yeah,
it's fine. Oh no, I haven't got a job since tomorrow.
You got a portrait to do tomorrow, haven't you? He's got to get the studio back.
Yeah.
Ready.
Yeah. It's all part of the fun, Joel. Part of the fun.
Good times.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for joining us this week. It's wonderful to have you live. Please let us know that you're watching as well. Drop in the comments. We normally get through into the comments and say hello to as many people as we possibly can as well. So
use any fun emojis.
Yeah, all of the emojis that are available to you, because there has been complaints in the past that there is a lot more emojis available on the Facebook platform than there is on the YouTube one. So that's.
I suppose it depends where you watch it as well. So if you watch it on your phone, then you've got a massive amount of emojis available. Or if you've got a Mac and you press the little world button,
it's like what that's for.
Loads of them. Look at that.
Yeah. Ooh.
There's loads. It's like 1,000 emojis to choose from.
And, you know, that's why Mac's a race.
Yeah.
But that's what we're not here for this week. That is a different episode that we're going to be doing.
Mac versus Windows.
Yeah. Is
this like Canon versus Nikon without Nikon? So it's just Canon?
Well, it should always be just Canon.
Oh.
Yeah, because, especially for this week as well, which is Canon Week. So we've got some lovely promotions going on our website as well. So you can go over to our website, which is cambrianphoto.co.uk, and check out some of the savings that are available on Canon equipment. So, and this week is extra special as well.
Why is that?
Because we have a very special guest. I think it's possibly the furthest somebody has tuned in.
That is true. I think she wins the Photography Out Loud record for person furthest away from us, which, unless we knew she was there for a special task, we might think she was trying to get as far away from us as possible. Indeed. Especially because she only lives like an hour and a half away from us normally.
Yes, indeed. So, but no, it's an amazing honour to welcome Molly Darlington onto the show.
I'll press the button.
Yeah, go on.
Don't you worry. Here we go.
Molly, thank you very much for joining us.
Hello.
Are you all right?
Yes, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
The guitar. So tell us where you are, just so the people don't think we're weird talking about you being a long way away.
So I'm in Tokyo. I'm covering I've covered the Olympics and I'm due to cover the Paralympics from next week.
Oh, fantastic.
And just to let you know, Molly is not in a shipping container. Reuters can afford to put them in a proper hotel. She's not on like Tokyo shipping docks, if that's a thing.
No.
Yeah, no.
No, yeah, this is just the wall.
Yeah. We did say that.
Wall.
Yeah. We did say that she could look like a Bond villain.
Yeah.
Like we were going to get her to come on looking as mean as possible, so that she'd like fit in with her surroundings. So.
Yeah. So, how's your experience been over in Tokyo?
Yeah, it's been good. We had a little bit of quarantine at the start, which was difficult. We had to stay into our rooms for 4 days, and then for the next 10 days we were allowed to work and back. And then now we're allowed to restaurants, shops, etc. But we have to be careful still, because obviously we don't want to catch COVID or come into contact with anyone. But we have been moving around a little bit more freely now. The sports side of things has been incredible. It's obviously a huge event, but the biggest one I've ever covered. And I'm only quite young to cover an Olympics, so yeah, it's been quite a special one.
Yeah, you've kind of like come in at the top. Everything's gonna seem like pretty small compared to the Olympics.
As a sports photographer, it's got to be one of the big tick boxes, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think the Olympics and the Men's World Cup. I'd really like to do a Men's World Cup, because I love football as well. So that's like up there with one of the best.
So, like your bucket list, you've done the women's football World Cup. Yeah, and you've done the Olympics. So now the men's World Cup, and maybe when is it? Next year?
Next year, hopefully.
Yeah. Once you've done that, Molly's going into retirement having completed the bucket list.
I've completed it at 24.
Yeah. Jobs are good one. See you later. I'm going to go find another industry to work in. That'd be amazing, wouldn't it? Yeah, that'd be... I don't know what else would be bigger than that. I can't think of anything.
Yeah. Well, just keep doing it. And
then you can be like the oldest in like 80 years time, like 100 and something, doing like sports photography. And hopefully the 400 won't be as heavy by then either.
Yeah.
It gets lighter every year.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I kind of want to keep talking about the Olympics, but maybe we could circle back.
Yeah.
And then we can go through pictures from the Olympics.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that if you were to do next year, you'd be 24, so very young. Yeah. So how did you get into photography, given it wasn't that long ago?
No. I did it at GCSE level and A level, and then degree. When I like sort of combined it with sport when I was at college. There was like a local advertisement just on one of the boards, and it said that my local football team, 1874 Northwich, who were in the Northwest Counties League, they were looking for a photographer just to help out, volunteer, to do cover games. I'd never obviously photographed football before, so I wasn't very good. But I went every week, home and away. And the first game I covered was actually at it was in the Cheshire Cup against Crewe Alex, so it was actually quite a big game for them. But then so the pictures were used like in the local Northwich Guardian, and it was so nice to see. And then they were used in the programme, and I was probably there for about 3.5 years. I went to every home and away match, and I loved it. I really loved it. It was really nice seeing some of the old grounds, little grounds. Just
proper grassroots kind of.
But I mean, that's the way that you refine a skill, though, isn't it? Yeah. We could talk about football. We could talk about any sport or any type of event that you would actually photograph. And it's I've said it before. It's a case of it's learning the event that you're at is a really big part of actually photographing that particular event. So knowing your sport, knowing the type of event that you're doing. And obviously the more that you go through that, the sort of more experience, not only do you pick up in photography, but in how the game is run. It's always different from watching it on TV and actually being there, and especially photographing it as well. So
completely.
I suppose it was good to kind of have that regularity as well, because you were building up a rapport with all the players from that Northwich, and then also with the officials and things like that. So you could kind of probably get into places and kind of develop. You could probably see an image going, next time I'll try and get that image because I've seen it and I wasn't able to get it this time because I was in the wrong place or whatever. So I suppose you can kind of like trial and error much more quickly and get to a point where you kind of understand where you get the best shots from and what lenses to have and stuff.
Yeah, definitely. And it's also quite nice to like form like a relationship with the fans as well, because they were always like really supportive, and like after a match they were always like love looking through your photos and like choosing which ones they liked and that kind of thing. And it's always really nice. Like I've been back there a couple of times, like more recently. I went back once and I shot a game for Reuters when football wasn't going on, but the non-league football was going on. But like the bigger football wasn't. And they were like, oh yeah, this is great, like we're getting a bit of publicity from Reuters. And then I've just been back with Canon, and again, like they were like, oh yeah, it's great, like we'll do anything, like you helped us like massively, so we'll return the favor, like obviously if you want to come back and do anything with us. So yeah, it's really nice to kind of have that relationship and like with the club, because like they like have always supported me so well. So yeah,
that's cool.
So honorary member then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's real cool. So you mentioned that you loved football and photography, and you combine them. Was there ever a point where you thought you might do something other than sports photography?
Not really. When I started doing the sports photography, that was like pretty much I had my heart set on that. When I got to university, it was kind of a bit, they didn't want you to know what you wanted to do. They wanted you to trial loads of different types of photography. And I wanted to do football photography. So it made it a bit difficult because I was trying to put football into everything that I wanted to do. And they were trying to take me away from football as far as possible. But we got there in the end. And my final project was about football.
Yeah. Yes. She's setting up like still life with flowers and stuff, like on a piece of grass, like 4-4-2 and stuff.
Oh, I love that. It's just like, fine, I'll do these little mini projects and stuff, but my final project is definitely going to be on football.
I remember doing my art foundation, and we had to try every type of art and like sculpture making and textiles. And one of them in the fashion section, I had to do the textiles. They're like, you should really go to like London College of Fashion to do fashion. I was like, no, there's no way I'm going to a fashion university. Like this is. No, there's nothing else further from what I'm wanting to do. It's fashion. Yeah. Like, no, definitely not. It's quite funny, though, that they kind of force you out of your area to try and experience things. And you're like, nope, definitely not. Just that. So football was obviously massive. Was that influenced by just your personal thing, like personal desire? Or did you have like friends and family in football, which kind of helped?
Mainly. Yeah, okay. Family. I've always watched football since I was little with all of my family. And I've got a twin brother as well. So we always used to go and play football at the park. Like I always used to go with his mates and we just play football and like watch football. And yeah, so I've always grown up with it, like surrounded by it really.
Okay, that's cool. Did you have anybody that kind of was into photography to help you with that kind of?
No, was a lot of people ask me that question, and I really didn't. My mum probably wouldn't know how to use a camera at all. But yeah, no, none of my family are really into photography. But I did it I guess from a young age. I had a little compact camera when I was young, and I used to go around taking hundreds of photos. And my mum used to be saying, come on, we need to go. And I'd be there like taking like 50 photos of one thing. But yeah, I did it at school, did it at college, and I just loved it.
Yeah. So there's always something been there, even from a very young age.
Yeah. But even when I was young, I used to walk around with my little compact camera.
That's fun. That's nice. Yeah.
So just briefly on the whole like influencing thing, when you were at university, obviously they were trying to counter influence you into other areas.
Sounds like it.
You're not allowed to take a picture of a football or anybody in a sports kit. It's like the rules to not go into a posh restaurant, isn't it? No football, no joggers, no trainers. Did you find uni useful, or did you just kind of think it was a means to an end to kind of get you into your career choice?
No, I did I did get some useful things out of it. I think at the time I went to uni, I didn't know how to get into the industry, and I didn't really have anyone that I didn't know anyone that did know how to get into the industry. So I went to uni, and I met a guy called Ross Cook, and he's a sports photographer, but he does like a lot of portraits with players, and he does a lot of work for like sports magazines and people like that. And he used to go to my uni, and he was probably about 2 years above. And one day he came in and did a talk about what he did, and he was doing a project for BT Sport at the time, and it was like around fans and football, their relationship with football. And he was also Bury Football Club, who no longer exist. He was their club photographer. Okay. So at the end of his talk, I found it so interesting. So I went and had a chat with him, and he was like, "Oh, if there's any Bury games that I can't make, I'll let you know, and you could maybe like cover them." So he did, and I did probably 2 or 3 Bury games, and then from that, Accrington Stanley got in touch with me because they were looking for a club photographer. So then I did a couple of months at Accrington Stanley, and then I got picked up by an agency, AMA Sports Agency, who I then worked for while I was at uni. And he like kind of, the guy that runs that, he's called Matthew, and he sort of like taught me the ropes of the industry, really. Because while I was doing a few bits for Bury and Accrington, I was just teaching myself. Like I wasn't really learning from anyone, like the process of it all and that kind of thing.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's interesting because obviously, you know, if you never have gone to uni, you would have never gone that route. But almost, you know, you actually learn everything that you potentially needed to know within, you know, very quickly, and had all the necessary tools to even move forward, you know, without the uni sort of backing it.
Yeah.
Although going to uni was worth it just for meeting Ross.
Yeah, that's
exactly. That was kind of probably what started it. Like
all those tuition fees, all that student debt, just for that one connection.
Yeah, that's all you need.
That's true.
That's all you need. Just you one big break.
So you spoke about the fact that you're in Japan now, and you've done the Olympics, and you're about to do the Paralympics. But obviously you were quarantined. Now we've all had some level of quarantining with lockdown. All right, no, still sore subject, too soon. So what did you do in lockdown? Obviously you mentioned you did the non-league clubs because they were still allowed to play whilst the big clubs weren't allowed. Was there anything else you did whilst you were in lockdown to kind of stop you going crazy?
All of the sports photographers at Reuters, we were sort of moved on to news. We were kind of all thrown in at the deep end, really. And basically we just had to document anything that we could find ourselves that was like news related, that like empty streets, places closed down, cafes shut in, packing up, all that kind of thing. And then we did exactly the same when it's like all reopened and closed again, like because obviously we've been in and out of it. And then other things, sometimes we get contacted by like the desk, and they'll tell us like, "Oh, we've got this job today, can you cover this?" Like I'd say probably 80% of the time we're out there finding stuff for ourselves, but the other 20 we sort of get asked, "Oh, someone's asked for this, can you do this?" Or so one of my favorite things that I did was I photographed Boris Johnson taking a coronavirus test.
Oh yeah, you need to show that. 1 second. So if I add you, there we go. If you find the picture.
Yeah. So.
And if people have done one of these, it goes well horrible.
Yeah.
Like I always like my eyes always water, and I like start gagging. It's horrible.
Not very important.
I had to do 3 of them last week, so not nice. But
such an attractive shot, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it is for him. But there we go. Oh yeah, no politics or anything like that on this show. I forgot about that. Moving on.
Do you want to, talking about finding shots? Do you want to show us that shot of the Rashford banner?
Yep. So this one was basically, we found, I saw it on Twitter, and there's a group called the Withenshaw. I can't remember what they're called. Something to do with Withenshaw, and they posted on Twitter this banner. And obviously, we're always looking out on online for, like, when we were covering the news stuff. It was like, oh, what can we find next that makes an interesting picture? I saw one of them post this, that they were just putting it up. So I literally drove straight to Withenshaw. It's about half an hour away from mine, because otherwise, me and my colleague had a discussion about whether it'd get taken down, whether it'd get like vandalized, all that kind of thing. So I went straight away, took this photo. Coincidentally, that isn't my dad with a red umbrella. There was just a guy with a red umbrella walking past.
It does make the shot.
Yeah,
great.
Yeah, and then the next day, a guy that I know, I work quite closely with, but he works for a different agency. He works for the Press Association, and he went to photograph this the next morning, and it was gone. So he like rang me, and he was like, "Did you take it down?" And I was like, "No, I didn't."
But Molly's got it in a drawer.
Just in case anybody got a picture of it apart from me.
Molly won. Everybody else in the industry nil.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I suppose that kind of goes along with sports photography, but you know, any kind of news-based photography or current affairs photography. You've got to be in the right place at the right time. Interesting, you said you found it on Twitter, and kind of almost using like that collective brain of news that Twitter has become to kind of go out and find the information. Otherwise, you'd be driving round and round for like ages just trying to find stories.
Even trying to find out where it was. But yeah, a lot of our news stories. So like, especially like when coronavirus first happened, like I went to a place, there was like a street in a place called Frodsham, and there was a lady on the street who was like, she ran like Zumba classes. Anyway, she decided to get her big speaker and do these Zumba classes on the street, and all these like old people and young people, and they were all dancing on the street together, but like outside their own houses, so it was socially distant, but all that kind of thing, like we just found online. Obviously, the longer lockdown went on for, it became increasingly difficult.
People just getting tired of it and not coming up with new ideas anymore.
Yeah.
So just, I don't know, it intrigues me. So with Reuters, are you kind of on like a contract with them where you get salaried, or do you get paid per picture or story?
No, so I'm sort of on like a contract. I've got like a year. I get like a year's contract at a time. I'm not staff, but I've got like a set amount of days a month, so I get like a monthly fee.
Sure.
But I'm pretty much, I only do work for Reuters and then Canon. But yeah, mainly Reuters is pretty much a full-time work for me.
Yeah,
it's kind of a good place for you, especially during lockdown, to have that, because obviously a lot of photographers really struggled, didn't they, when obviously like
absolutely, like a lot of freelancers, like because there was no sport going on, and then when sport did restart, we had this system which was like they call it a pool system. So for example, each game when they restarted without fans had like 2 agency photographers, so which was on like a rotation. So we were paired up with AFP, and then Getty were paired up with PA, and then AP and EPA, and then there was 2 newspaper photographers into each game, and they were on a rotation, and then 2 freelancers into each game. And like the pool photographers, we would all so basically Reuters get Getty's pictures, Getty get Reuters pictures, and all the same for all 6 agencies. And then the newspapers were the same, but the freelancers, it was just like potluck as to who got in. So if you were a freelancer and you got into that game, you didn't have to share your pictures with anyone. They were just your pictures. Sure. So like usually there was probably at least 20 photographers into a Premier League game. and then coronavirus hit, and there was maximum 8, including the 2 club photographers from each team. So so it narrowed it down like massively.
Yeah, I suppose that puts like a bit more pressure on like delivering like the images as well, I guess, you know.
Yeah, completely, because your images, rather than just going to your company, they're going to 6 companies, and you've got 6 editing desks looking at your pictures and probably telling you how rubbish you are.
Yeah. But also, it must be weird when all of these agencies are almost like enemies. I don't know exactly how awful it is, but they're all fighting each other normally, and then they're like best friends sharing.
Yeah, and then these rules came out that everybody had to share each other's images, which yeah, I would much rather just be sending to my own agency. But yeah, it's that's the way it's been for pretty much the whole of last season since it restarted. This season has changed and is going back to normal. But I haven't been home to experience that one yet.
Yeah. On that, how long are you in Japan for?
A total of 58 days.
Wow.
Goodness me.
So yeah, I came out on the 11th of July and I head home on the 6th of September.
It's like you'll have experienced summer, whatever that might have looked like, coming into autumn, just about winter, probably. Like, that's mad, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely bonkers.
And like time zone as well.
Yeah, the time zone has probably been the most difficult. And like when we were in quarantine, because we weren't doing anything in the daytime, like trying to get over the jet lag was like impossible.
You're just sleeping all the time and
like you weren't doing anything to make yourself tired, and then when you were tired, it was like nighttime at home but daytime in Japan, and
so weird.
Yeah, absolutely crazy.
So obviously you were going around essentially doing your job just slightly differently because you were looking for any news story rather than just going to sports events and things. Did you do any personal projects? Anything that just because?
No, not personal photography projects really. No, I because we were so like, even though like we didn't have any sport, we were just so busy with news that like it was just pretty much taking up all of our time. So no, I didn't do any like separate projects really.
Okay, that's cool, because that's what obviously a lot of photographers have ended up doing, is producing personal work, isn't it? So it's quite interesting to somebody who's almost done the opposite and probably never been busier in some ways.
Yeah. And like another thing that we were sort of doing was I think there's a picture on here. Yeah. Like these are so last year obviously the Olympics were supposed to happen in 2020.
Yeah.
But all the athletes so they obviously couldn't go, but they still had to train. But a lot of them couldn't go to where they needed to train. So we photographed athletes in their own homes. And this girl, she's called Bryony, and she's actually just won bronze at the Olympics. Incredible. And this is her like training for the Olympics last year at her home in her back garden in Sheffield. And she's like a trampoliner. And normally, like, obviously she would be practicing on like those huge trampolines. But no, she was doing backflips in her garden on a little bouncy.
It looks a bit sketchy, in all honesty. Yeah. I mean, it looks like a futon you would have had when you were a kid.
You can see why she's won. Because
that's dedication, isn't it?
Yeah, that would hurt if you were a loser.
So, how many people did you find like that? Like photograph
I probably maybe did 5 or 6. 5 or 6 altogether. I did a couple of Paralympians as well. I did some photos with Hannah Cockcroft, who's come out here. She's a wheelchair racer, and her boyfriend as well. They live together, so they were training together, and it was really interesting to see like them training. It was kind of like I don't know what you call it, like a turbo trainer for the bike, but they had it with their like wheelchair bikes, so they would ride but be static kind of thing. and they were just riding next to each other, like at their homes, and it was just like, now they're coming out here, and I'm like so hoping I get to photograph them at the Paralympics just to show the difference a year makes.
That'd be fantastic, wouldn't it? To
that'd be wonderful.
Kind of a before and after, kind of. Yeah, it's bizarre, isn't it? And it makes you think about photography as kind of a art form, technical, whatever.
Yeah.
The fact that photography is probably one of the only things in the world that could achieve essentially what you've achieved in such a forceful way. Obviously, video is great because you can tell a story more easily, but it takes more time, and it's spanned. It needs audio and things. Whereas an image, it's just there.
Yeah.
But yet, you're talking about an image that you've taken last year or the beginning of this year or whatever, and then they're coming into doing what they'd been working so hard to do through all the difficulties to get to a point where they're on the other side of the world. And you can have potentially one image of them training and hopefully one image of them like being really successful.
Yeah.
That's just incredible, isn't it? You wouldn't be able to view that with writing.
No,
and you couldn't hear that, and you couldn't even video that, because to have two things simultaneously moving, Oh, I really hope they do well. That would be a fantastic combination of the two images next to each other. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, definitely.
They do well. So, okay. So, obviously, this year has been, and last year has almost created you a new job title for a brief period of time. You became a news photographer, not just a sports photographer.
Yeah.
Would you go into news photography, or are you definitely going to stick?
I'm going to say no.
Okay.
Not as a full-time thing. I don't mind the odd bit here and there. Some of it's actually quite interesting, and some of it's a nice change and makes you think a bit differently about things. But as a full-time thing, like, I love sport, so I love photographing sport. Like, I'm not really into. I'm not a very political person at all. Like, I don't really follow it, and that kind of thing doesn't really interest me too much. So I would much rather photograph something that like I'm interested in, because I think that shows in your photos as well.
Sure. Yeah. No, agreed. You've definitely got to love what you do. To keep doing it, and insert that passion into your pictures that you do.
So, what's one thing you wish you'd known before you began your career? Both. I want to split this question: pre-COVID and post-COVID.
Yeah.
I think you have to make contacts, and
pay a lot of money to a university to get you a conversation with a bloke called Ross.
Yeah, I would probably say that people have different pathways. I went to university, but looking back now, if I knew what I knew now, then I probably wouldn't have gone to university. Sure. I think a lot of it is about making contacts in this industry, and if you know the right contacts and you get advice from the right contacts, then people are willing to help you and willing to help you progress to get to where you want to be. So yeah, that's probably my main one. Post COVID is I guess I am so grateful for my job, because it could easily have just been thrown away. I'm the youngest one at Reuters, and I'm not saying they would have got rid of me, but they could have easily said, "Oh, you're the youngest one, you're the newest one. We don't have enough work for that kind of thing." But they just they trusted us to just go and find the news that they needed. And I think some of it that I found was a really, really good news story. Some of it was just ticking boxes. You just went to photograph empty streets. But if you can do the ticking boxes, then you can find the nice news stories to cover, and that's all. That's what makes the nice pictures.
Sure. Yeah. I suppose you've got to create your own look in those finding the good news stories, because
absolutely. And like a lot of sports photography, for example, is you have to have good luck, because if you go to a football match, you have to have a certain amount of luck, because there's 4 corners that a celebration can run to. There's 2 ends that a goal can happen. If it happens at the other end, then you're stuffed, basically. So it's not your day, is it? But if it happens in front of you, then you've had a lucky day. So there is a certain amount of luck that you do need to have.
What's the fastest you've run from one end of the pitch to the other down the sideline?
Do you know what? I've done that a few times.
I feel like there'd be too many cables. It'd be like doing the 400-meter hurdles, wouldn't it? Trying to dodge
especially when you're all set in your position and you think you're sat at the right end, and then all of a sudden they swap ends at the beginning of the match, and that's when you'd have to do your sprint down the other end because you were set on one team.
Oh no! Oh, that's quite interesting, isn't it? To think that there's so many of you doing your job in normal times at the same place, and one of you might just be at the right place when all of the others, with all of their experience as well, don't get the shot, and then vice versa. Like they might all get the shot and you don't. You know, like that kind
completely. And I know photographers who some photographers will be known for having the best luck in the world, and if you want to be sat in the right corner, you sit next to them, because they will always be in the right corner.
Lucky charms of the industry.
Always. Without fail, some people are always in the right corner.
Note to self: if you become a sports photographer, always find the one that gets the best shots and just shadow them everywhere.
Well, in all our eyes, it would be Molly now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Looking at your images.
Yeah, we just keep finding Molly. Where's Molly going? Just put an air tag on them. Right, where have they gone? That sounds a bit creepy, actually.
Just a little bit.
Okay, so talking about creating your own look, this is always an odd question, but I think it's interesting. What's your biggest failure, and what did you learn from it? Not following the right photographer and finding the one with the worst look.
I'm not sure, really. I'm trying to think.
Yeah, that's always a good start, I would say.
Yeah.
I think
either there's loads, you can't choose from them all, or it doesn't happen very often.
No, I think mainly, you always feel like you failed if you come away from a game and you've not had a very good game. You sort of have to sort of let it not affect you, and you just say, oh, well, we go again tomorrow, or we go again in a couple of days' time, and don't overthink about it. But you will always come away from a game, if you've had a great game, you'll come away thinking, oh yeah, I've nailed that. Or you come away from a game, if you had a rubbish game, saying, I've completely failed. What's everyone going to think of me when they look at my pictures and there's nothing there, essentially. So yeah, I think that's always a big one about failing.
So it's learning how to deal with that, basically.
Yeah. When I first started, I was told don't let it affect, don't let it get on top of you, don't let it beat yourself up about it, because it happens. You can't always be sat in at the right end. It's
easier said than done, that, isn't it?
Yeah,
really easier said.
Well, you said, there's 4 corners and 2 ends.
Yeah,
and then you think you're in the right place and they swap around. I guess that kind of mental battle that keeps going on all the time.
Yeah.
Incidentally, a quick question from that then, especially at the Olympics, because you obviously photograph football primarily, but obviously you shoot other. We'll go through some of your pictures in a moment. Did you find the Olympics easier or harder from that perspective, or was it just a continuous learning process?
So I guess I covered some football at the Olympics, and so at Premier League games we would normally have a photographer at each end, so there's less pressure. At a championship game, there's one of you at each one of you at a game, so you're choosing which end you're at. But obviously it's a championship game, so it's not going to make the back pages of every paper. So the Olympic Games were a bit strange, really, because like until it got to the quarters, semis, and the finals, you were on your own. So you're choosing which end. But then I sort of thought, well, it's quite hard to choose which end when it's a country, and especially the men's, because they're primarily under 23s, and then they're allowed 3 over 23 players. Whereas the women's teams, I can quite have, like, because I did the Women's World Cup, I can sort of gauge like who's better than or the other team. Like, it doesn't always work out like that, but you sort of know roughly, because the women's teams are full squads, any age, like just their usual country squad. But I thought the men's were particularly like hard to predict on that kind of thing. And then obviously in some countries, like GB didn't even have a men's team, whereas like in America, South America, the men's football, whether it's the Olympics or the World Cup, like the Olympics is still huge to the South American teams. Whereas some countries aren't too fussed about it. So yeah, it just varies really, I guess, on the importance of which sport.
And did you find it interesting, for instance, photographing fencing or diving or swimming?
Yeah, very. I mean, I've never done fencing before, but fencing's kind of like quite known for like quite arty, nice pictures.
Let's show those.
Yeah.
The one fencing shot I can think of, like when I saw it, I was like, "This is incredible!"
Yeah,
like that's just
that one. Yeah, that's your favorite.
It's just magic.
Yeah,
I'd have that on my wall.
You can see the motion of like how they move, and you know, you've captured it so well.
Yeah.
And also, you know, it shows, like you said, the elegance of how they move within fencing as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like the backgrounds are always really nice in fencing. So like this one, for example, it's like everything's just blacked out. Like there's obviously a few odd lights which you can't do anything about, but like behind the people, the players, it's just like
shot.
it's just so blacked out. So it just makes lovely backgrounds. And then this one, going back to this one, this was taken from the stands, because obviously it says Tokyo 2020, which obviously gives it a little bit of context.
Yeah.
You didn't go through and go 1. It's always going to be a weird one, isn't it? 2020 then, it happened in 2021.
Yeah, it's so strange seeing it everywhere. But it's like just the branding everywhere is like Tokyo 2020, and I'm like, yeah, it's just not 2020 though, is it?
Yeah.
No, I think it's interesting as well. Do you think because it was the Olympics, you were allowed more creative license? Because I feel like we wouldn't ever really see an image like this at a Premier League game.
Okay, yeah. So, so one here, so usually in like the big tournaments, they have pitch position, like let's call it a pitch, like low down positions. So you're like next to the spot, and then they also have tribune positions. Now in the UK at Premier League matches, you would never get a tribune position, apart from potentially, I think Watford have a tribune position. And during COVID, we've been allowed to go in the stands because they've been empty. But usually on a normal match day, you would never be allowed in the stands where the fans are. This kind of picture, when the fencing's on, there's like, so there's the round of 64, then the round of 32, then the round of 16, then the quarters, then the semis, then the final. And that process happens each day for the fencing. And it happens in other sports too. But because there's so many of them, for the round of 64 and 32, your main focus is just to get a picture, like a stock picture or a picture of them in action, every person who's fighting. And then when it gets to the last 16 and the quarters, you can sort of do these kind of shots because you've already got a picture of them in the bag. So you can play around with the shutter speed and all that kind of thing. And just make some like nice arty shots. like this kind of one. And then when it gets to the semi-final and the final, it's more about like the reaction of the fighter, for example,
Sure.
and like that kind of thing. So yeah. So, but obviously, if you're just at a Premier League, you're never going to try and take this kind of shot because,
Sure.
like you've got 90 minutes and you've got pretty much that brief to go to if you need to report everything that's happening in the game. So if you're messing around with your shutter speed and then suddenly there's a goal or there's a red card, then it's not really ideal.
Yeah, sure. I feel like it'd be interesting to see a Premier League footballer looking like this, though, especially when they go into a tackle and dive.
Yeah,
can make it very artistic.
You do get sometimes people will do a little pan of a footballer running across, but it doesn't happen too often.
Sure. I feel like if you show us your diving shot, that'd be great of a Premier League footballer in the box, just floating down to the floor. It'd be great.
This one.
Yeah. This one's great as well. And the way it says Tokyo.
Yeah, just slight in the background.
And also you can see that as like a magazine front cover, can't you? And like as a designer, I can see where I'd put like text, like a headline and stuff like that. It's
the Tokyo was really nicely placed. And again, it said 2020, but the Tokyo, I think, was the best placing, especially as they dived off the board. It like literally lined up like this. So she's just like laying underneath. She's just underlining the word, really.
And the fact that it's out of focus, but it's out of focus in a really nice kind of stylized way, and the separation is great. And like you're saying, the dark background with not a lot of light makes it powerful, doesn't it, to kind of show the form as well of like the people who have worked so hard to get to this point, and like people are so focused on what they're doing. I think it's really cool. So okay, so we'll move slightly on. What advice, we've kind of like gone into this a little bit, like in the terms of what you'd know at the beginning of your career, pre-COVID, post-COVID. Apart from like building contacts, is there anything else? You said that you probably wouldn't have gone to uni. Do you think that's just for sports photography, or would you say that that's true of any kind of photography based on you getting into the industry the way that you did?
I think a lot of photography, if you have the contacts and you build the contacts with the right people, then you can do it without uni. I guess a lot of people go to uni for uni life. I know that kind of thing. But
not in COVID, they didn't.
Yeah, that's true. But I think it's
cool.
If you want to go, then like I would say completely like, but for me, I probably wouldn't. If looking back now, I probably wouldn't.
It's not like the be all and end all. It's not like if you want to be a lawyer or an accountant,
it's not. It's not. No.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think if you don't know what genre you want to go into, then it's a good place to go to experiment and to find out that. Like we got to work in like the dark room and all that kind of thing when we like started uni, which was really like nice facility to have and to be able to try out. Because obviously there's not many of those around anymore. But yeah, for that kind of thing, it's really nice to try all that kind of thing out. But when you know what you want to do, I don't think it's always necessary.
Sure.
Yeah, it is interesting because I mean, I never went down the uni route, so I knew exactly what I wanted to do. And sometimes it is there, sometimes it isn't. I think I did lose the option of that, like you said before, Molly, that play time almost.
The safety.
The safety of it as well. And I think it just allows you to, even if they're trying to push you into other areas, it just gives you a couple of more years to almost refine what you're doing as well before you're
definitely
out into the world.
Even technically, I suppose.
Yes, the time. Yeah.
I also, I guess for you as well, like whilst you're in uni, you got to do the like non-league games, but you because that's what happened, right? Isn't it?
Yeah. So I started that when I was at college, and then it carried on through like my first probably year and a half of uni. And while I was at uni, I was also photographing the uni sports teams. Like so I started off. I asked the lads football team if they wanted any photos, just to build contacts, portfolio, etc. And obviously, like football lads, they're always up for having the photos taken. and so I asked them, and then they were like, "Oh yeah, that's great." And then from that, the uni like sports, so like it was called MMU Sport. They then paid me to take some photos of all the other sports teams as well. So like I did like the university nationals of like the swimming and like taekwondo, and then the netball and all that kind of thing as well. So that was really good experience to just kind of do some other sports as well that I hadn't done before, and again just meet some new people.
That's cool, because I feel like university is quite a good time where you're already scraping by in terms of money, and you're unlikely to get a proper full-time job. So being able to do jobs that work around your schedule of university can work out well. And I guess that's probably true with the football, because obviously it was either in an evening when you didn't have lectures, or it was on the weekend when you wouldn't have had lectures either. So it kind of fit around it really. That's cool.
Yeah, and then in my final year, I then did a season of Formula E. And
that's really mega.
That really didn't play into the timing of uni. But I had to ask my lecturers. I was like, "Look, I've been offered this opportunity. Like you go to like 10 different countries, all over the place, and you sort of go each time. The Europe ones were sort of over a weekend. The likes of China, Hong Kong, Chile, etc. They were all sort of maybe for a week." And this was when I decided that my university projects, I did one around the whole of the Formula E, I like as my final project, and then I did another final project based on Wolverhampton Wanderers Football Club, because the agency I worked for football at the time are Wolves club photographers, so I had more access to training, to changing rooms, to all that kind of thing. So I made a program styled book out of that. As one of my final pieces, and then my other piece was documenting all the Formula E and how I worked at that.
That's a ridiculously cool like final project for university. Formula E, I just travelled around the world for my final project. What did you do for your final project? I shot my cat at home.
Yeah, I mean, you're certainly not scared of going out and getting it, Molly.
Yeah, that's well.
I think nobody could say anything else about that.
That's amazing. So coming kind of not away from the university, but in terms of resources, obviously uni was a resource. Was there anything else that inspired you? Videos, podcasts, books, anything that you would say to other people? Like if you want to get into sports photography, you've got to read this book, or you've got to watch this documentary, or is there anything like that that kind of helped your journey?
Book-wise, I was very into a book. I'm trying to think what it's called, by Julian Germain, and he basically had this book, and it was about literally everything football. And he had like Subbuteo players, he had like people hanging up washing in the back garden that they were doing from a non-league match and all that kind of thing. But I thought it was a really good book. And I also looked at one by Hans van der Meer, which he did landscapes of football grounds in like really obscure places, like within the mountains, or like so yeah, he also had a really nice book. I'm not a huge book person, but when I do find a nice book, I do really enjoy looking through pictures in a book. But I think probably the best way to be inspired and like learn like at the moment is through social media. Like 90% of photographers just post all of their will post all of their work or all of their best work like on their social medias. And I think just looking at other people's work is a huge like learning curve. Even if you just go onto like the agency websites and you type in somebody's name, that like a photographer that you like. I have a particular photographer who I look up to a lot. She's called Kath Iville and she works for Getty. But before Getty, she worked for the little agency that I worked for, AMA. So like I looked up to her loads. I think she's like a brilliant photographer. And I'm always looking through her work, even now, like just to see what she's taking, how she's taking it, and all that kind of thing. But yeah, like that's probably the best way to learn, by looking at other people's photos.
Yeah, brilliant.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure you'll be one of the names sort of in people's mouths going on into the future, Molly, where you're inspiring other people. So
definitely. Should we just go through a few of the images that we didn't get to?
Yeah, that'd be really nice.
We'll let you choose which ones.
Yeah. So these are a few of the Formula E ones.
I'm mad into cars, so it's great.
Yeah,
I think the only thing better than like shooting Formula E for me would be Formula One. I think that's literally like.
Yeah, and then so not only did I do the cars at the Formula E, I also did like the hospitality side of it as well. So I sort of incorporated all of this into the project, because it was like a very glamorous side to the racing, if that makes sense, that probably not everybody always sees.
Yeah, no.
And then these ones are from the Women's World Cup, which we travelled around France for 31 days.
Wow. You like travelling, don't you?
Yeah. And
your passport's got loads of stamps in it.
Yeah. I said to my mum the other day, I was like, when I get a new one, can I have this one back just to show where I've been?
You can actually ask for it back and they cut off the corner, because I did that.
So this was one of my favourite pictures that I took. I was sort of having a few down days, and then in this game it sort of just all came together, and I had like a bit of good luck with it all happening my end.
I love the shadow in this one.
It's
really nice.
Like
just the light behind the hair as well. It's just really nice.
Yeah, the catch light of the hair, and then the fact that the ball is still in the bottom right hand corner, and you can it adds a bit more context to where the bodies are as well. It's cool.
And then these were obviously just like the trophy at the end, which was nice to capture. After you've done that many days following clubs around to get to the final, it's quite a relief.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah, of just getting it done.
And these images, do you like the kind of storytelling side of sports photography as well as the action side?
Yeah, completely. Like I think so. Some images like you have to get because like they're what's going on in the game, and some of them like are just general action shots. But like this to me, like obviously England did so well in this tournament, and then they got knocked out in the semi-finals. But like they did some lovely celebrations, and I love looking back on pictures just to see kind of what happened. It's just nice. It's a nice reminder. And then this was obviously COVID.
Great shot. Have a great team.
Yeah.
Not my team. It was a bit scary this actually, because they were setting off fireworks like just in the street wherever they wanted to. And in this picture, obviously COVID was quite like ripe at this time. So me and another photographer, Chris Furlong, we found like funny enough, we were talking about shipping containers before, but we found like a shipping container and we climbed up the side and jumped on the top of it to sort of get this angle, because otherwise if you're just down on the same level as everybody else, it's hard to get above and show what's going on.
Sure.
So we jumped on this shipping container and a firework literally landed right next to it, and I nearly knocked this guy off.
No way.
I was so scared.
Goodness me.
I nearly knocked him
take
out.
it you weren't wearing any of your football team's memorabilia that day?
No, absolutely not.
Oh dear. Because that's like the storytelling of this. There's actually no football in terms of action, is there? But yeah, it tells you
because
a lot about what happened that season.
Yeah.
Yeah, because nobody was allowed in the ground. And like a lot of people took, well, there was a few photographers inside for the trophy lift, but I think, if I'm honest, I prefer the pictures from outside just because there's something different. Like this was in the middle of a pandemic. No one on that picture has got a mask on. They don't care. But like they're all there celebrating, and the team are probably inside thinking like we can't go outside and celebrate with them because we're not allowed.
It's like real life versus the clinical image that they put on TV and stuff, isn't it?
Yeah.
Again, it shows like, you know, you can really dig down into an image like this because again, it's showing the passion of the fans.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you know, like you said, you know, they're all there without masks and stuff like that because it's such an important part of them, and that, you know, feelings like that come through in an image, and you know, it's so important why we need to, you know, photograph them and record them, and document them. Yeah.
Like it happened at Leeds as well a couple of weeks later when they got promoted, and it was completely it was exactly, I went there as well, and it was exactly the same. Thousands turned up and just I mean, I love to see this kind of thing because I love like fans showing up, chanting, doing whatever. Like that's what we've missed in the games. Like being inside an empty stadium is just like terrible. Terrible.
Yeah, can imagine.
So this was in the FA Cup.
Yeah,
I love the fact you can see houses in the background.
Yeah,
it's a really cute little stadium. It's in this is where Marine play, Marine FC, and this was in the FA Cup, and they play near Crosby Beach. They're just round the corner from Crosby Beach, but it's a really cute little ground. And then they played Tottenham in the next round, but they weren't allowed fans. So, and then this was the first weekend that football came back and fans weren't allowed. And this guy, he's called John, and he's a Burnley fan, and he goes to every Burnley match with his head painted like this.
Yeah.
So we approached him and asked him what he was doing for the first game back. Even though he wasn't allowed to go to the game. And this is what he was doing, painting his head to watch it in his front room.
Yeah.
Mad, isn't it?
Just dedicated to the game.
I love the fact that you can see the football on the TV in the mirror.
That just completes the whole thing for me.
And also the clock, like game time.
Yeah,
it's cool.
So much going on in that image.
Yeah, it's great.
Love it.
He's got a lot of dedication to sit there having his face painted like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, so long enough to get my hair cut by a barber.
He's used to it.
I think his daughter had the most dedication to sit there and do that. It took forever.
Yeah. I'd have figured out a way of sticking, I don't know, stickers on and just spray painting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I couldn't be doing with that. Goodness me.
It's like this was the first picture
image,
probably at the Olympics. Yeah. The first game I did had a couple of fans there because it wasn't in Tokyo. It was in a place called Miyagi, which was like proper up north, and they're not in a state of emergency, so they were allowed a few fans in. And I just thought this kid sort of summed it up really, just sat in the seats with all the tape with every other seat and with his mask on.
Yeah. So sad, isn't it? Yeah.
It's mad.
And then you've seen the fencing ones, a few swimming ones.
Swimming must be an interesting one to photograph.
Yeah, it's really nice actually. I really enjoy the swimming. I hope I get to do some swimming for the Paralympics as well, but we've not got a schedule yet.
Sure.
But yeah, it makes some really nice photos.
You got the Olympic rings in there easily, didn't you?
Yeah. It's just like looking for simple things like that shows like a little bit of context as to where you are. Like this one for example, like this sort of dolls are like the Japanese like figures. But this was a remote. I wasn't lay on the floor next to the horse. That's the thing.
Could have been painful if it went wrong.
Yeah, so we set up some remotes in some locations, and this one just paid off. I just thought the girl in the red coat with the red, it just made it nice. Sometimes the colours of what you need.
So quickly, talking about remotes, obviously you've got the camera set up on a small tripod or whatever, and you can remote release. Do you have like a tether for it, or are you just kind of guessing when they're going over? Can you see your?
So we use like 2 pocket wizards.
Sure.
And I have one on my camera that I'm taking photos with, and then one on my and then one on the camera remote. So the one that's on my camera that I'm taking photos with, I mean, I wasn't always stood at this jump, so I just took the pocket wizard off the camera when I wasn't stood at this jump, like face on the other side of the barrier. So sometimes I was just triggering it myself when they looked like they were going over the jump. They didn't always all look like this, I can guarantee that.
Yeah, it's interesting that you're actually using you're using the camera as the trigger. You know, your actual camera.
Yeah. So that's how we use it in football. Normally, we just put the pocket wizard on our 70-200. So if we've got a remote camera behind the goal, then it's usually 9 out of 10 times you take a picture of a goal on a 70-200. So that's why you put it on your 70-200 instead of your 400. And then as soon as you take a picture on your 70-200 of the goal supposedly going in, then it triggers the remote one as well. So you've got the same thing kind
That's
of.
cool.
Brilliant.
And
didn't know that.
Yeah, and talking about workflow, obviously you're using 1DX Mark IIIs, and obviously they're designed for this kind of process, and to be able to send images directly to your like editors or desk or whatever. So do you have like a screen next to you, or is it purely just what you can chimp on the back and it just automatically sends, or does it depend on what you're doing as to whether you're sending?
Sorry, for the remote, is this, or just for in general sending?
Just in general.
Oh, okay. So no, we don't have a laptop or anything. While we've been at the Olympics, we have a cable. Usually in the UK, we use a little MiFi, and we connect our cameras to the MiFi or to the cable. And then if you've got a good picture on the back of your camera, you just send it. We have to voice tag it to say like who it is, or if, for example, in the Premier League, you can't see the number on their shorts, you'll say, oh, this is like United number 8 or on City number 4 or whatever. And then you just send it to the desk in London, and then they edit, caption, and send it out.
It's mad, isn't it?
I love technology. I really do. It's so great.
It must be weird though to have to think about this, see your image, and send it while still paying attention to the game, so you don't miss. You must be very good at multitasking.
Yeah, but it's a lot harder to. It's a lot harder. So for example, championship games or League 1 or League 2 games, we would have to edit on our laptop live.
Oh no. Yeah.
So it's a lot easier to just send a picture, click the set button, and it go off the camera, than it is to take the card out the camera, put it in the card reader, put it in the laptop, edit it in Photoshop, then caption it in Photo Mechanic, and then send it.
Flipping heck.
Yeah.
Because if you're doing that by the side of the pitch, then you lose a lot of time. But for championship and anything below that, we self-edit. And for the rugby as well, we self-edit.
Okay. I guess it makes sense, doesn't it? Because of the speed and
how many people. Well, yeah, it doesn't need to go out as quickly as the Premier League. Like the Premier League stuff goes so fast. But yeah.
Part of the magic. Those are two very interesting facial expressions.
Yeah.
Not gonna lie.
Yeah, the synchronized swimming is very like dramatic and full of these kind of facial expressions.
Yeah.
Do you get to ask to have your camera set up in locations you can't reach with remotes to get different angles?
So
because when you see like synchronization, like the synchronized swimming from like above, obviously somebody's
right. Yeah, so usually those are set up like those cameras are set up by like specific people. So for example, a specific photographer will come out to the Olympics just to do remotes, and they will set up all those kind of remotes in like so it's like looking directly down.
Like on a gantry system.
Yeah, like gantries.
Yeah. So they have specific people assigned to that kind of thing. So it's like, for example, the underwater cameras as well. Like they obviously need to be able to swim and dive and set up a camera underwater, which I would be useless at. So we have like certain photographers who do that as well. And like they literally came out to the Olympics, did 3 weeks on the swimming of underwater photography, and like it makes some incredible photos. But like I would never be able to do that because I'm not really great at swimming.
That's brilliant.
Yeah. Are there any more?
There's a couple, but these are just like a daily life in Japan that we've been out and about taking. We still send them to Reuters and everything. But just like where we've been, these are just in Tokyo, and then finish off with the sunset. That's from the Tokyo Tower.
Wow,
that's lovely. Yeah.
Amazing.
So yeah, we still have to do bits and bobs like that, and we still like send it all. Like there's no pressure on it, but yeah, that's the kind of thing that we've just been doing in between.
Yeah, sure.
General news stuff, and because we're not from Japan, we sort of have a different view on it than like the photographers from Japan, because they see it every day and we don't at all.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah. Oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
So, and what a lovely picture to end on as well.
Definitely.
So, I think we're going to go to some of the comments.
Yeah. I'll be the button smusher.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Smusher, did you say?
Smusher, yeah.
Wow.
So Steve says, afternoon, guys. Great to see you both as always. Thanks very much, Steve. Great to see you. Ian says, afternoon, you two. Hope you're both well and that Paul is out of quarantine. Yeah,
I hope so too.
I hope so too. I'm sitting right next to him. So Eugene says, greetings. Hello, Eugene. Good to see you. And Steve says, brilliant interview. Very wise head on young shoulders. So there we go. You're doing well. So, and then Tina says, hello, guys. Hello, Tina. And Ian says, a fascinating interview. It definitely was.
And the hand claps.
Yeah, and the hand claps. I forgot the emojis. Shocking. Nick Can says, this is excellent and informative. So thank you, Nick Can.
Cheers, Nick.
And he says, how is the criteria for attending any sports events in the UK? As here in Ireland, it's being restricted to national newspapers and accredited agencies. Even club photographers are barred to attend games.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
I haven't heard that. But in the UK, at the moment, it's gone back to how it was before COVID. While COVID was on, we obviously had the pool situation, which I explained earlier. But now it's completely gone back to how it was beforehand.
Yeah.
That's cool.
There we go.
He says fabulous photos, which I definitely think we can agree.
Yeah.
He also asks, will Molly cover the Cookstown 100 or the Northwest Motorcycle Races or the Isle of Man TT events? Oh, the Isle of Man TT would be a cool event to photograph.
Any of those something that would interest you in the future?
I would do if someone said go here. I'll go. I'll cover anything, to be honest.
3-year-olds on tricycles. I'll do it.
Different. But yeah, it just depends on where we get sent, really.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Nick Cam says, is Molly going back to cover the Paralympics?
Yes.
She actually hasn't left.
Yeah.
She just stayed there the entire time. This is an interesting question. Do you use a local SIM whilst abroad or pay your home phone supplier? Especially for that long. It's a long time.
So we are given a local SIM by work if we want to use it. But I use my own phone.
Sure.
So
do you have a work?
I just find it easier. I have a work phone with a local SIM in, and then I just have my own phone, which I've been speaking to people from home on.
Yeah.
Sure, makes sense.
Probably just makes it easier.
Especially with Wi-Fi as well, isn't it? You can
exactly. Like there's Wi-Fi literally everywhere in this country, and we have like a little MiFi as well, which I can connect to my phone to if I don't have a signal anywhere or anything like that.
That's cool. This one's an interesting comment. 2 women in the synchronized swimming look like female Hamlet poses holding the head skull of poor Joey. It's true. So there we go. Thank you for all the comments. It was great to see your reactions to Molly, and a massive thank you to you, Molly, for joining us all the way from Japan.
Yeah,
I don't think we're ever going to have anybody this far away unless we can somehow get, I don't know, Richard Branson or Jeff Bezos to take a picture and say hello from outer space.
Yeah, because we're pretty much as far as away
I can't think of anybody. Yeah. Australia might be the only way you could get any further away, or like the Falklands or something.
Yeah.
Well, Antarctica.
For the meantime, Molly holds the gold for being the furthest away.
There we go.
Out loud. So. Brilliant.
I think Cambrian should pay for us to go out there to present her with some sort of medal.
I think that's an excellent idea, Joel.
Sarah's like, no, not spending money on that.
Oh yeah! Once again, Molly, thank you very much for joining us. It's been amazing. We'll just pop you off the screen just for a second. We'll quickly say goodbye just after we come offline. But big thanks, and I'm sure we're going to have a load of people in the comments thanking as well. So brilliant. Thanks a lot, Molly.
Cheers.
Well,
that was
how
fantastic.
Awesome was that?
That was very cool.
Yeah. Oh,
also,
I'm just smiling from here to here.
Great interview, and also not a lot of lag considering she's so far away from
us.
There was more lag with you like 2 miles away.
Yeah. The amount of lag that we had last week, which was like 10 seconds. I was thinking halfway through this interview, like,
I thought
we're having an actual conversation with each other. And she's halfway across the world. So.
I know. She said the Wi-Fi wasn't that great either earlier. And I was like, it's better than we've got around here.
Yeah.
So that worked out really
stunning.
Well.
Yeah. So
thank you so much, Molly. It was great.
It was really, really good.
We'll have to try and figure out when you're back and life is more normal to do like a workshop at like a local football or rugby.
Yeah, that'd be absolutely cool. Awesome.
Yeah, maybe with the R5, R6 and the R3. That would be cool.
Yeah.
So we'll have to speak to John about that.
We certainly will. Big thank you to everyone that's joined in to watch this very special live video that we've done. If you're rewatching this at any point, you can always tune in live to our videos. We do them every week. Friday at 4:30, so please join us live, and you can join in on the fun, asking questions and all that lovely stuff. Please make sure that you go over to our Facebook and YouTube channels, hit the like and subscribe button, and share the videos as well. So the more you share them, the more it helps us do what we love doing here and want to keep doing it
and getting amazing guests like Molly on.
So the more you do that, the more we can sort of bring in sort of these amazing guests like Molly.
All the way from Japan.
All the way from Japan. So, right. Joel, any final thought before we break up for the weekend?
Just photograph things running.
And
see how difficult it is and see how sports photographers have to work very hard.
Okay, I will try and get around that, and I'll just photograph my car.
Okay.
Thank you very much for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
Cheers. Bye now.